In today's Modern Warfare 2 video, I'm showing you guys my best settings. I'm going to go over everything I got here in my settings so you guys can have the best possible understanding. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe, notifications turned on, and let's hop into this. All right, so let's hop in here to these controller settings. First, I know a lot of you guys out there that watch me will be on controller, and myself included. I do play on a controller here on PC, so let's get into it. First thing, I play on tactical flipped. This is not a necessary thing, but I do believe it actually works out very nicely. I ran that primarily just because, you know, way back, you know, in early Modern Warfare, you know, obviously, you know, the slide canceling, everything like that, tactical flip was the way to go for all that. So I've just been playing on tactical flipped ever since. You don't really need it as much in this game, considering you can't really do any of that movement, but it is still definitely a beneficial thing to play on. You guys can play on default tactical flip. It doesn't really matter. The bumper ping is off. My flip L1 and R2, all that sort of stuff. My triggers are flipped. My top ones are the ones I use to shoot, L1, R1. My bottom ones is what I use to throw grenades, stim shot, etc., etc. So I believe that is going to be a beneficial thing, if you, especially if you're on, like, you know, PlayStation controller. I do believe that, you know, when you press in those top triggers, it is easier and faster than actually pressing in the bottom ones, you know, because it's just like a bumper up top as opposed to pushing in the whole thing. I know there's some sensitivity there that you can adjust on those bottom ones, but overall, I've also been playing on PlayStation, you know, 4, PlayStation 3, and of course, you guys know, I mean, it was pretty much always your top trigger, so I've gotten used to that, and so I try to play with it whenever possible. Next up, on my stick layout is just default. Controller vibration is on, the trigger effect is off. My horizontal and vertical stick sensitivity is a 6.6. Your sensitivity is largely going to depend on your personal preference. For me, I believe a 6.6 works out perfectly. I ran with that on Warzone 1, you know, on Rebirth Island. That was like my finalized sensitivity, and I've stuck with it here over on Modern Warfare 2/Warzone 2. I don't think you need a high sensitivity. Also, don't think it should be super low. I have a friend, Ears. He plays in like a 4.4, which I believe is a little bit too low. That's kind of like slow as molasses. A 6.6, in my opinion, allows you to have great accuracy, not overcorrect, and still have good movement and the ability to turn around. I think it works out perfectly for me. And then as far as, you know, my ADS sensitivity multiplier, I put that a 0.9. I do believe sometimes when it's at a 1.0, you can kind of like start overcorrecting your shots. So I move it down to a 0.9. So that means that I don't quite have a 6.6 when I'm aimed in. It's ever so slightly lower, which does kind of help slow you down a little bit and thus make your accuracy better. Your sensitivity multiplier, this is just at a 1. I don't really mess with that. I don't believe you should mess with it. Doesn't really make sense. Your vertical aim axis, I mean, this is just all standard stuff right here. And of course, then your ADS behavior is going to be on hold. You can have pretty much a variety of other things in here, but automatic tac sprint, I actually have this on. And for any guys that do play controller and are watching this video, which I'm sure if you are on controller, you're watching this right here, automatic tac sprint will save your thumbsticks, just because, you know, you're constantly mashing that thumbstick in, and that's what causes like some stick drift. And so you will have a lot more wear and tear in your controller if you're constantly mashing that sprint button. So actually having an automatic tac sprint can be very beneficial. So I'd recommend it for you guys to have that. Afterwards, we're just going to go down here, tap to reload. It's just kind of like the go-to. If you're playing something like Warzone, maybe something like prioritize, you know, reload over like prioritize interact, or like one of the other ones. Pretty much like you should not be running tap to reload on Warzone, but for public match multiplayer, tap to reload is definitely the way to go. And of course, my armor plate behavior is just apply to all. Just got to keep it very simple. Next, I'm going to go to the advanced category here. In my target aim assist, got to have that on. Always should be playing with aim assist. My aim assist type is the Black Ops. I actually was running the default, and I switched over to Black Ops, and it feels like it's kind of a little bit more sticky here than the default aim assist. But I wouldn't really recommend precision or focusing. Just either go for default or go for Black Ops. I know a lot of people are running this just because it is probably the most sticky aim assist in the game, so you might as well take that. The third person aim assist correction type is just on assist. Keep that gyro behavior off, all this sort of stuff. It's not really as like useful and functional in this game. I don't really see it being that useful. Everything else you can be perfectly accurate with. Doesn't really matter. My aim response curve type is here on dynamic. I believe that S curve mapping is just hugely beneficial. It actually will allow you to like slow down. It's like, so linear is just straight across, and there's no sort of deviation in like how you're actually you know, aiming. But when you have that S curve, that allows it to really kind of slow you down or speed it up a little bit when you need it to be. And for me, that allows me to be super accurate when actually it slows me down a little bit. And when you combine that with your ADS sensitivity multiplier and you put that down to that 0.9 there, that really does help out. So I think this setting here just goes hand in hand with everything else. After that, ADS sensitivity multiplier focus is on a 0.8. I actually tuned this down here just a little bit. I kind of find this to be beneficial when you tune it down. Definitely don't ever keep it at a 1.0. I'd highly suggest moving it down. It is personal preference at the end of the day, much like with any sensitivity setting, but I believe you should definitely not keep it at a 1.0. Now, something that I think a lot of people kind of get confused with is the inputs, dead zones. I literally just have the left trigger, right trigger at 0. My left stick and right stick is to 0.15, and of course then my left stick and right stick max is to 0.99. So I mean, I really haven't messed with this too much, and I will say that I know a lot of you guys out there have issues with your tuning. When you're trying to tune something, you think it just starts moving on its own. That is indeed because your controller has a degree of stick drift, and your sensitivity dead zone is going to be like too low. So you're gonna have to start moving that thing up, just because it's like, hey, you know, if you're going to be trying to tune your guns and you can't physically tune the guns, that means your controller is a little bit messed up, and you have to kind of compensate for that, which means increasing your dead zone. So if it's actually already at a plus 0.15 and you still have issues, then you probably should just get a new controller. Stick drift is one of those things that you really kind of can't come back from, usually speaking. That kind of just means your controller's shocked. And for the last setting here within the advanced controller settings, the grounded mantle, pretty much your automatic airborne mantle, automatic ground mantle, you should probably just have this on off. You don't really want to be automatically mantling things that can really mess you up, especially when you're in a gunfight. You move next to an object, maybe you're trying to jump shot, and then lo and behold, your character grabs onto the ledge, pulls you over, and then you lose the gunfight because you automatically mantled. We just want to have this stuff on off. It doesn't make sense. Just turn it off. And for those of you guys that kind of want to see what I'm working with here as far as like my PC goes, I'm not going to like get into this in depth because I know a lot of you aren't going to be on PC, but I do have a 27-inch monitor here, an Omen 27 IPS. I have an RTX 3080 Ti. I play on 165 Hz refresh rate at 1440p. But that's pretty much that. I'm not going to go into any of that other stuff down there because it's going to be very PC specific, and a lot of your PC settings are going to be entirely towards your system because everyone's got a different build. It's not like it's a console or something like that where everything's universal. As far as the view goes here, this is something you guys need to be taking note of, and that is your field of view. So I recommend for everyone to play on 120 FOV, and here's why. So 120 FOV, as you guys can see even by like the picture, even though my face cam's covering it, is that you see a vast more amount of your screen when your FOV is higher, and that also inherently does make it look like your guns have less recoil or less, you know, visual recoil when you actually combine that with the affected field of view. When you max it out for 120 and you also have it on affected, that means your character is not going to zoom way back into that 80 FOV, which I think looks completely whack. So definitely do not be playing on independent, play on affected, so that way, you know, your FOV affects your ADS, and that will make your guns look like they have less recoil visually and kind of help you be a little bit more accurate. Of course, some stuff is going to look a little farther away, but your guns are going to have less recoil, and for multiplayer and even for Warzone, that's very beneficial. Also, some of you guys should be taking note of is that your weapon field of view, you don't really want this to be narrow. That means your gun's going to take up more of your screen, which is not something we're really about. We definitely want that to be on either default or wide. I play on wide just so that my gun is obviously still there, but I don't want it to take out more of my screen than I have to have it, just because it's like, you know, I want to be able to see what's going on around me. And when I have the increased FOV and a wide sort of weapon field of view, I see so much more of my game than probably someone that's playing on 80 with like narrow or even default. Also, your first person and third person camera movement, you want this to be on least. We definitely don't want that. It's like as far as like when it's shaking and stuff, you definitely want it to be on least. We want the least amount of camera movement possible. Now, this is what I think here is one of the more largely underutilized settings in the interface category. That's going to be your color customization. So some people ask me, how does my game look so vibrant in game? Why does my minimap and everything look the way it does? And here is why. So I'll show you guys all this stuff right now. So what I suggest for you guys to do right now is to go into your color filters here, you know, in that color customization, put it on filter 2, and then you're going to do exactly what I got in right here, both color filter target. You want that on both. You want the world color intensity to 70, interface color intensity up to 100, and then your HUD color palette is going to be on custom, and you guys can change it to pretty much what I got right here. But this is a very easy thing to be able to see. I mean, your thing's going to be white, your team's going to be blue, the party's going to be dark blue, your enemies are going to be red like they should be. Neutral is going to be kind of sort of that white-ish like where you're at, and then contested is going to be yellow. Makes your game so easy to be able to tell what's going on. And so I'd highly recommend you guys choose these colors in everything I just showed you. Also, something that I think a lot of people don't really take notice of is your mini map shape. This should be on square. You always want to have a square mini map. You just see so much more of your game as opposed to having a circle mini map. You can even just look at it when you're in your settings. The square mini map will show you more, so always run the square. It doesn't matter if you're playing multiplayer, playing Warzone, just run the square mini map. And pretty much I think the rest of the stuff down here is going to be pretty like easy, that we don't really have to go over it too much. And one last setting here real quick in the quality category. I just kind of want to go over this, make sure you guys don't have this on, but your depth of field, definitely want that off. Your rolled motion blur, definitely want that off. And of course, weapon motion blur, you want that off, and film grain all the way down to 0. So this is something that even consoles have the access to be able to use. So I definitely recommend always having these last 3 options on off. It'll make your game a lot more clear, and we want to be able to see people. Well, I indeed think that's about that. If you guys enjoyed this settings video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe with notifications turned on, and be sure to check out these other videos here on screen. Just our Untouchable Cap, don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.